Okay, well, we have a lot to cover today, so I don't want to spend too much time doing an intro, but in case you don't know me, I'm Becky from Click Fluency, and I'm the co-founder here. And this month, I'm really excited that we're going to talk about this topic because this is something that is just always changing on, Amazon, and I think that this is going to be really helpful because if your products aren't seen, how can people buy them? How can you grow sales? So this is just one of those foundational things that's so important. And Amazon is always changing. And actually, just last year, they updated their algorithm even. It was A9, now it's the A10 that they have. There's a lot of things around that. So I'm just going to jump right in and go ahead and start sharing my screen. So you really need to figure out what is most important, or what are those most important keywords based on your product niche. So you want to find specifically, you should really know your customer. We actually talked about that last month, really knowing your customer avatar, and even on the 2021, Amazon marketing plan, you really want to make sure you understand your customer, what they're looking for, and you want to really kind of, as best you can, niche it down. So some ideas of getting the juices flowing for that, you want to start brainstorming. What are people typing in that are looking for your products? Maybe even look through, if you have a Shopify store and you get emails, looking through what are people commonly asking or mentioning, or even in their reviews on your website and on Amazon, what's happening, like what are people saying and mentioning. That's going to be a really good indicator of keywords that you'll want to make a note of. Just keep making a big list, and then what you'll want to do is narrow it down. And then another thing is to use the Amazon search bar. So when you start typing in something, Amazon will actually start to autofill it. So something you should do today, not right now, obviously, but later on today, you could start typing in your brand name and then see what comes up after your brand name. So what are people connecting with your brand name? And typically, you might find that it's one of your best-selling products on Amazon. It'll have your brand name plus maybe an element of that identifies with that product that's like one of your best sellers. That's usually what's getting a lot of search volume. There might actually even be other terms that you wouldn't have thought to add in there, that you would need to add in there, or you should consider adding as one of the targeted keywords. So write those kind of down, like what are people searching? Now, if it's completely irrelevant, like I said, if you don't sell eye cream, then don't put that in there. But if there's something in the search bar that pops up, definitely make a note of that if it's relevant. And then you want to have your listing that is really built to convert, targeting those keywords. Okay, so we talked a lot more about product listings last month, so I won't go into that too much. I will go into that a little bit more later, but you'll want to make sure that they are converting as well, because it's great to get it found, but if it doesn't convert people when they do find it, then Amazon's algorithm is going to recognize that, and you're going to lose that traction if you started to gain some. That's why it's not as helpful anymore to do as much with necessarily to do too heavy on promotions and coupons and heavily discounted product like it used to be even just a few years ago. A lot of people relied on that strategy, but as soon as you stop doing that, if the conversion just doesn't do well all of a sudden, you're going to lose that traction. So you're going to put yourself in a vicious cycle, which is not where you want to be, to spend a ton of money on Amazon that's unnecessary. And then you'll definitely want to optimize your listing for Amazon SEO. So what are people, like I said, searching on Amazon? Remember, it's not Google, because they're not looking for information. They're looking at this point for products, and they're very ready to buy typically on Amazon when they've reached that stage. And then also just building your authority is, I kind of mentioned that before, their new algorithm. It's really, they're looking at that customer experience, how they've had, how your rating is on your product and your reviews and everything. So making sure that those are healthy. There's a lot that could be said about product reviews. That would probably be a whole other topic for another day, because there's so much that could be said about that. But pay attention to those reviews for sure, and address any issues that you see continually pop up. Handle those quickly. And then there's all things you can do within terms of service, even as Amazon's become more strict, to just really make sure you're offering a quality product to customers with what they want. And then track your results. So it's great if you put all these things in place. You have certain keywords based on your niche. You have your listing to convert, but if you're not tracking it, you're not going to see if this is actually these changes, how they're impacting you and how much they're impacting you. So it could have an impact, like I said, for a while. And then if you weren't tracking, maybe in month 4 or 5, all of a sudden you may have lost some ranking on a specific keyword. Well, if you weren't tracking these things, you wouldn't have seen that happen. And all of a sudden, it may be another 3 months before you caught it. And at that point, you would have lost thousands or more in sales that could have been yours. Plus, you would have lost a lot of organic ranking that you had previously had. So tracking it consistently is really, really important as well. Okay, so I did tell you I'm not going to do a whole thing on optimization with listings because that's not the purpose of this webinar, but I do want to kind of touch on it again. So, Amazon, when people are searching on Amazon, it's going to do almost like about as much as 6 times as much on, a product website. You've probably noticed if you have a Shopify website, you probably noticed the conversion rates on Amazon are amazing. So it's such a great opportunity. You really also want to make sure you're leveraging videos to improve conversions if you have that asset available. And this used to be something that was only available if you had brand registry. You may or may not be aware, but last year they opened it up. Now it's for anyone. So everyone, even if you don't have brand registry, can use that on your listing. And then obviously if there's variations for your products, maybe there's different flavors, different sizes, but of the same product, you definitely want to use that. That's really actually going to help you. It kind of aggregates a lot of things like the, the product reviews and different things where instead of having 2 different listings, you're kind of splitting the results. You're kind of focusing it in on one listing as long as it is an actual variation. And then keyword targeting, what they're searching for, and like that is relevant. I've kind of already mentioned that a few times, but also unique copy that's persuasive and yet Amazon SEO friendly. So I've seen copy and the bullet points specifically, the product description, if you don't have A+ content or even within the text on A+, you want to make sure that it is persuasive. This is basically your ongoing sales page on Amazon. And so many people are so focused on just the keywords. You want to weave those into the listing, of course, and make it make sense. But you want to make sure it's indexing. That's huge. But you want to make sure that it is moving customers to a decision to buy, that you kind of don't just say, I have this ingredient in our product, but say this ingredient is going to impact you in this way, and this is what you're going to, this is the benefit of it. This is why this is like a particular ingredient that you really need in your product. So kind of helping customers to understand that. And then keywords in the title, bullets, and back end. So kind of a general tip to remember is the top left for the most important keywords that you're looking for. So going back to when you're brainstorming your keyword list of targeted niche keywords, remember the niche keywords are typically actually going to be longer. I didn't already say that, but they're typically going to be a little bit longer instead of just eye cream that's very broad. And the top left is a good rule of thumb. So when you're looking at a page on your page, your product listing page, look at the top left. So make sure, especially if it's getting good search volume and it's very, very relevant to your product and you want to try to index for it, which means you would show up in organic searches, you would want that somewhere in your title. As long as it makes sense and you can put it in there correctly within the formatting and everything, that would be the best place to have it. Another place obviously would be then the bullets and then the back end. So the back end is it's much better for ones like misspellings, things that you don't want people actually seeing, but you're going to want to make sure they're at least in one of those places and somewhere in the copy on your listing or in the back end of your listing. And then all of your key product information should be on the page. So remember, people are not in a physical retail store, which a lot of people have been shifting now, even more so, even more quickly than we had anticipated from a year ago. People are shifting now more to shopping online than ever. So remember, they're not actually going to be able to touch your product, to look at all the sides of your product. So you're going to want to make sure there's key information on the page. Now that would include all angles, as that are relevant for your product, but then also within the listing itself, make sure all that key information is filled out. And Amazon likes that too, when that is information is available for their customers. And so that is something you want to make sure is fully built out. And then also something else, I kind of briefly touched on it earlier. You can really, this is what the top brands that are doing to just continue to get the most out of, everything with Amazon and the features, but split test to maximize your conversions even more. So if you think your products are doing well, there's also things, if you have brand registry, there's experiments where you can do split testing there for like the A+ content, the titles, those main and secondary images as well. And you can see what resonates most with customers and, seeing how that impacts when people come to your listing to then buying. So that's going to be really helpful to test out, especially as you're thinking, well, I don't have too much more maybe to squeeze out of this. Usually there's always another way to continue to grow more out of it. So let me go ahead and give you an example. Going back to the eye cream example, I want to show you just some of the search volume numbers. This is within a 30-day period on Amazon. As you can see, when I mentioned earlier, eye cream itself is getting a ton of searches. You can see 119,178 searches. So that listing that was shown earlier, their sponsored rank was 8 on that, but their organic was first. So they were leading in that space for eye cream, which for such a high volume search term, that is very, very competitive. So to get into the market, or depending on where your current position is in the market, you would kind of be able to see what you need to do to increase your organic rank on that. It's a little hard to explain because there's a lot of nuances to that, but if you're currently on page 3 of eye cream, you're not most likely getting seen. If that was a keyword that you were targeting, my recommendation though is, and I'll explain this more when we talk about this, but is to create a more niche keyword phrase so that you're not targeting something that is so broad that is going to be very, very competitive. Unless you have an unlimited ad budget on Amazon, where you had the ability to do a lot of things to get it higher up, and even then you would still be limited. And then we've got anti-aging eye cream. So you can see it's a more specific keyword. You've got less search volume. There's only about 6,900, which that is still search volume, though. That's almost 7,000 people every month are looking for that specific thing. And if your product is super relevant to that, then that would be great potentially to target that. So like for that listing that I'll show you another screenshot later, it's the sponsored rank was the second place. So they were heavily, still doing ads, even though they ranked first organically in that. So that's why pay-per-click isn't everything, but it definitely is something that you want to continue to go and have running, especially with certain keywords that are relevant, that are, converting for your products. And then eye cream, anti-aging cream, see, it's just phrased a little different. That's getting actually even more search volume than the other way of saying it. So it's the order of the words even matters. And you can see they're ranked first organically for that, and it had over 20,000 searches, which is obviously that's a good demand for that type of product. So just a few other things about the SEO formula, just for summary. Set up that listing and build it so that it converts, and then get those keyword phrases that or the keyword in that title if possible. Make sure that your copy is persuasive, that it's relevant, it's keyword rich at the same time, and that it's targeted towards your customer. So your customer better than anyone. Use that information of knowing their pain points, knowing their struggles, and knowing how your product has benefited them, making sure that that's included in the copy. Also leveraging video to help with conversions. And I've already mentioned the traffic through pay-per-click really helps support that to gain that organic ranking as well. And then product reviews, you want to make sure you're continuing to get those, and you're just building those top keywords and targeting on that target list, and then you're tracking how things are going with that. And if possible, and if you have brand registry, or you're eligible for it, use experiments to then even split test. So if your listing, you're thinking it's already really amazing and it's really converting well, still split test it to see if it's if there's more that can be maximized in the conversions. And then leverage your paid search to identify that high search volume to include in your listings. So that's where we always think that, like, as a baseline, you should always be running at least, just your basic Amazon pay-per-click, Amazon PPC, like I showed you earlier with the sponsored ads, because then you can also find out through that what is converting and what's not. So you may have had something that's converting that you didn't realize, like this is a keyword that I should probably start adding into my listing that would, then you can start getting organically instead of always having to pay for the searches for that. Now, keep in mind, I didn't have this here, but you always have to be careful with the keywords you put in there, that they're within terms of service that Amazon has put in place. So just an example would be, don't include your competitors. That's not allowed. People do it, but it's not really allowed. And when Amazon throws the hammer down on that one, it's not going to be fun if you get caught in the middle of it. So, just don't do that. You can target it through paid ads, but not through on your listing.